They said I was too emotional to lead, so I built a company they couldn't ignore. After her own family sabotaged her career to help her irresponsible sister, she didn't just survive, she turned betrayal into empire. I always thought betrayal came from strangers, the kind that lurk in the shadows, the kind that wear ski masks, not wedding rings or soft cardigans scented with lavender. But I was wrong. Betrayal came from the people who tucked me into bed, the ones who told me bedtime stories while secretly scripting my downfall. I was 26 when it happened. After years of clawing my way up from unpaid internships, surviving off stale coffee and instant noodles, and enduring a carousel of temp gigs that paid in handshakes and experience, I finally landed the job-coveted corporate strategist position at Sabotage, a major renewable energy firm in downtown Chicago. It was the kind of job you fight for, the kind you don't talk about out loud until the ink is dry on the offer letter, just in case fate overhears and gets vindictive. But I made it. I was the first one in, the last one out. I learned how to speak in bullet points in silence rooms, with a single PowerPoint slide. Within a year, I wasn't just another name in the employee directory, I was promoted to executive liaison to the coup. Victor Hammond. That's when my parents started noticing me again. Look at our daughter, my mom would gush on Facebook. Making us proud in her fancy little job, as if they'd sculpted my success with loving hands, as if they hadn't spent most of my childhood reminding me that I wasn't as pretty, as charming, or as promising as my younger sister Leia. Leia, the golden child. She flunked out of 2 colleges, switched career paths more often than she changed passwords, and once borrowed my car only to return it with a shattered windshield and a receipt for hair extensions in the glove box. And my parents, they worshipped her like she was the sun. You should be more like your sister, my dad used to say. She's a free spirit. No, she was irresponsible, reckless, careless. But when I finally had something, they couldn't ignore real success. They didn't celebrate me. They plotted to steal it. It started subtly. A few weeks after my promotion, I noticed my name missing from email chains threads I had once spearheaded. Victor, my boss, stopped CCing me on strategy updates. I was pulled off 2 major projects without warning or reason. Then came the wellness check-in with HR, just a routine touch base, they said. Smiling too politely, except it wasn't. We've received some concerns, HR murmured, voice syrupy and vague. Someone claiming to be a family member contacted us. They said you've struggled mentally in the past, that you've had breakdowns. My skin went cold. That's not true, I said, my voice a rasp. Who said that? We're afraid we can't disclose names. Confidentiality. But I knew. That night, I called my parents. My fingers trembled as I hit dial. What the hell did you tell my job? I snapped the moment my mother picked up. Silence, then her voice off, feigning concern. We just told them you've been under a lot of pressure. We were worried. Worried. You told them I was unstable. You jeopardized everything I've built. My dad chimed in, calm and condescending. It's not like you'll lose your job. We were just trying to help. You push yourself too hard. You're not like Leia. You don't bounce back the same. And just like that, it clicked. Where's Leia working now? I asked slowly. She's between jobs, my mom said, too fast. But she's interested in corporate strategy. Thinks she could thrive in your field? My blood turned to ice. You're trying to get her my job, I whispered. Don't be selfish, my dad snapped. She needs a chance. You've already made it. I hung up, my hands shaking so violently that I dropped the phone. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, it got worse. Leia had applied for a position in my department. She had even listed my father as a reference. And somehow, Victor had already met her for coffee. I was being erased, not terminated. That would be too obvious. I was being ghosted in my department, slowly silenced while my sister floated around, soaking in stolen sunlight. Introduced as Alyssa's talented younger sister. Charming, bright, and completely undeserving. She even had the nerve to wink at me in the break room. They said you needed time off. She smirked, sipping her latte. Don't worry, I'm here to help. I wanted to scream, to slap that smug smirk off her face. Instead, I smiled. Because Leia had no idea what I was planning, I started documenting everything, every email, every HR memo, every project I was removed from, every odd exclusion, every subtle demotion. I pulled company policy, filed requests for internal communications under employee rights, Quietly, methodically, I built a case. I even hired an employment lawyer paid for from my emergency fund. The one I'd built while skipping brunches and birthdays. But I didn't stop there. I started digging into Victor's background. His daughter had attended a wellness retreat last spring, the same one my mother raved about in her yearly family newsletter. Coincidence? I didn't think so. The puzzle was forming. And at the center of it all, my family. They weren't just trying to ruin me, they were trying to replace me. 3 weeks after that HR meeting, my professional life was hanging by a thread. I had gone from leading million-dollar client calls to sitting in an empty office, while my sister gave input on strategy decks she couldn't spell. But I didn't flinch, because every move they made was being logged at, every smile that masked a dagger, every exclusion that violated protocol. It was all part of my silent war, a chessboard no one knew they were standing on. What they didn't understand was this: I didn't just know strategy. I was strategic, and if they wanted war, they picked the wrong Carrington. It's strange how quickly silence becomes louder than any scream. Meetings I once led passed without my invitation. Strategy sessions I helped build now happen behind closed doors. Victor stopped acknowledging me in the hallway. My inbox, whence an endless flood, became a desert. But Leia, she was everywhere. One week she was shadowing the product development team, next she was giving design feedback to the creative director like she'd invented clean energy herself. My co-workers, confused, unsure of what was happening, tiptoed around me. "Just taking some time for yourself?" someone asked, voice filled with faux concern. "HR said you've been under pressure." The lies spread like wildfire through dry brush. I was being erased, rewritten, and replaced while my blood smiled through the ashes. I remember standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 19th floor break room, watching the city pulse beneath me. I sipped burnt coffee and listened to my sister giggle 2 rooms over with the same man who once told me I had CEO energy. That day, Leia walked in. Her heels clicked like punctuation. "They said you're on wellness leave," she said, tilting her head. "Are you feeling better now?" She said it softly, sweetly, with the weaponized concern of a predator. I clenched the paper cup in my hand. Never felt sharper. She smiled. "Good. They need someone reliable around here." That was her first mistake, assuming I wouldn't strike back. Back at my apartment that night, I pulled open a locked drawer and laid out my war map. Emails, HR forms, internal memos, policy violations. My lawyer, Serena Morgan, had already sent a preliminary inquiry to the company's legal team, requesting clarification on the anonymous wellness concerns. But I needed more than paperwork. I needed a motive, leverage, proof of intent. I started with Victor. I knew his daughter had attended the same wellness retreat my mother wouldn't shut up about, some holistic center outside Napa Valley. Changed her life, Mom said. Reconnected her to who she was, and suddenly, there it was. A tagged Instagram photo. Victor's daughter, arms around my mother, captioned "Healing Weekend with the strongest women I know." My boss's daughter was BFFs with my mother? Which meant Victor wasn't just sidelining me because he was concerned. He was colluding, and I had screenshots. Meanwhile, I kept showing up. Early, polished, perfect. I didn't give HR or Victor a single excuse to finalize whatever backroom plan they were orchestrating. I greeted coworkers with grace. Even as I was removed from leadership threads, I offered feedback in meetings I wasn't supposed to be in, and I logged everything: dates, times, omissions. But there was still the question of Leia. How did she get the meeting with Victor? Why was he willing to stake his reputation on an unqualified, free spirit? The answer came in the form of a voice memo. My mother, in her endless need to be adored, left me a minute-long message. Her voice trembled with faux guilt. "We just wanted Leia to feel like she had a future," she said. "We told Victor she was smart, just needs the right mentor. We thought maybe you could share some space." They weren't just taking a job, they were taking my life. But what none of them knew, not Leia, not Victor, not even my parents, was that I'd been quietly speaking with Ethan Grant, the rising CEO of Terralogic Energy, one of our fiercest competitors. He'd connected with me months ago on LinkedIn after seeing a published case study I'd written on predictive demand models. We'd exchanged a few DMs, mostly industry talk. Now, I sent him a message, would love to discuss a potential strategic alignment. Coffee next week. He replied within 2 hours. We met at a small cafe in Lincoln Park, neutral territory. He wore no tie, just a charcoal blazer and confidence. He shook my hand and gestured toward the booth. Word in the industry is something weird's happening at Sabotage, he said casually. You disappearing from the leadership chain wasn't exactly subtle. I met his gaze, unflinching. They used my family to sabotage me, I said. His brow furrowed. Double quotes. Victor, let your sister in. I nodded. She's unqualified, untrained, and giving feedback on multi-million-dollar strategy decks. Ethan's expression darkened. We've been looking for someone to lead our next-gen innovation division, he said slowly. Someone who understands long-game thinking. And frankly, you built the most profitable forecasting model in clean tech last quarter. If they can't see that, we can. He slid a card across the table. Think about it. We're prepared to make it worth your while. I smiled, but in my mind, I wasn't thinking about leaving, not yet. First, I wanted to burn the house down. Back at work, I drafted the formal HR complaint meticulously built over weeks. It wasn't just a plea. It was a case. Attached, a timeline of every change in my role post-anonymous call. Proof that I was never offered mental health leave, evaluation, or rebuttal. Screenshots of Leia's hiring process, backed by my father's. Reference. A violation report, citing favoritism, nepotism, and breach of internal hiring ethics. Serena, my lawyer, drafted a letter to accompany it. If Ms. Carrington is terminated without cause, or retaliated against, we will pursue wrongful dismissal litigation and defamation under Illinois labor law. With a formal complaint to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, it was direct, precise, legal dynamite, and I delivered it on a Friday afternoon. By Monday, things shifted. HR called me in not for a wellness check, but to discuss transition planning. A fancy way of saying we're cornered and trying to find the exits. Victor wouldn't meet with me directly. He was traveling, but I saw him 2 hours later in the elevator. He didn't speak. He didn't look at me, but I looked at him, with a calm he didn't expect because I wasn't afraid anymore. They thought they were silencing me, but I was strategizing. And what they didn't realize, what they would never understand, was that I had already put the next phase in motion. Ethan sent the offer package on Wednesday. Not for a job, for partnership. I would lead Terralogic's North American strategy division, with a full team under me and equity in the innovation branch. He called it Carrington North. I called it chess, not checkers. The final move. I waited until the Q3 board meeting at Sabotage. Victor always used to showcase company growth, all built on my models. I showed up uninvited, dressed in black, folder in hand. The board chair blinked in surprise as I entered. I believe you'll want to review this, I said, sliding the folder onto the table. Inside: the HR complaint, the hiring timeline, the LinkedIn screenshots. My resignation, effective immediately, on the condition that Sabotage pay me 6 months of severance and drop any non-compete language. If not, I added, you'll find a lawsuit and media inquiry waiting in your inbox by morning. Victor didn't speak. He just stared, pale, cornered, and finally quiet. I turned and walked out. Not broken, not dismissed, transformed. Sometimes the sweetest victories are the ones that look like silence on the outside but roar like thunder behind closed doors. By the time I exited that boardroom, I wasn't just resigning from Sabotage. I was declaring war. Not with chaos, with precision. With the kind of ruthlessness that only comes from being underestimated, overlooked, and emotionally mugged by the people who once tucked you in at night. Victor didn't call. HR didn't follow up. But I didn't need confirmation. My severance hit my account 5 days later, 6 months' pay. Wired without a single line of resistance. No apology. No acknowledgement. But I didn't need words. I had won the opening battle. Leia, however, wasn't done playing house in my old office. 2 weeks after I walked, she was still there sipping lattes, giving presentations she didn't understand, floating around the halls with the smugness of someone who believed the crown now belonged to her. She had no idea the ground beneath her was already cracking. I didn't rush it. I wanted her to feel it inch by inch. At Carrington North, the division Ethan Grant built around me at Terralogic, we moved quickly. I had a new title, partner, strategic development. A new teammate of the brightest outcasts and underdogs I'd cherry-picked from across the industry. And a new mission, finalize Terralogic's long brewing, hostile acquisition of Sabotage's North American division. Ethan had been circling them for months. But they were slippery-cocky now. They were vulnerable. Their star strategist had just walked. Their executive team was shaken, and unknown to them, I wasn't just rebuilding, I was coming for the foundation at home. I lived quietly, moved into a minimalist loft with views of the Chicago skyline. The silence no longer felt heavy. It felt earned, but the messages started pouring in from my parents. My mom's voice trembled through voicemails. Leia's struggling. Alyssa, she's not adjusting. Maybe you could reach out. Then the guilt. She's your sister. Family fights, but they come back together. And finally, the manipulation. We never meant to hurt you. We were just trying to help her find her path. I didn't respond, because this was bigger than pain. This was about boundaries, something they never taught me but I was now mastering like an art. But the real punch came a month later. Leia was quietly let go. No internal memo. No announcement, just gone. Her name was wiped from Sabotage's internal database. Her keycard access was revoked. Victor too had vanished from public meetings on leave, according to gossip. But I knew. They were scrambling, and soon they'd be collapsing. 1 week later, it became official. TerraLogic acquired Sabotage, North America, every asset, every license, every executive. And guess who was listed on the transition leadership team? Me. The headline in the industry press read, Carrington returns from executive liaison to strategic architect of takeover. Victor didn't show up for the handover meeting. Instead, his resignation was announced by proxy. Leia didn't appear either, but she would later. Oh, she would. The next Sunday I rang my parents' doorbell. I wore a crisp navy pantsuit, hair pulled back, not a trace of softness on my face. They opened the door slowly, as if expecting a reunion. This is for you, I said, handing my father an envelope. He opened it. Frowning, his eyes scanned the first page, then widened. What is this? He barked. A cease, I said. Any further communication with my employers, past, present, or future, and you'll be hearing from my attorney. My mother gasped. You're threatening your mother. No, I replied calmly. I'm protecting myself. Something you never did. Leia stormed into the entryway. This is your fault. They were trying to help me. I turned to her, steady. They used me to help you. And now, no one's helping anyone. And with that, I turned and walked away. Because when a door slams behind you, you don't look back. You build a new one. Carrington Strategies launched 3 months later. No longer just a division, an independent female-led, industry-shaking consulting firm. The name Carrington was now etched in brushed silver on the 27th floor of a sleek downtown building right across from where Victor once ruled. I didn't just walk away from some, I absorbed it, and rebirthed it under my name. We celebrated the launch on a rooftop overlooking the city. Reporters snapped photos. Clients toasted success. My team brilliant, scrappy, loyal watched as I raised a glass, and I gave a speech I never thought I'd say aloud. To everyone who ever told me I was too emotional, too dramatic, too much, thank you. You helped me build the one thing you never saw coming, power without permission. The applause echoed across the rooftop like fireworks. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rebirth. But poetic justice wasn't done yet. 1 week later, my legal assistant walked into my office, holding a document with a half-smile. You'll want to see this, she said. My parents had filed for bankruptcy. After salary vanished and my legal threat hovered like a storm cloud. They'd defaulted on their home loans. Their house, the one I grew up in, the one I was never enough in, was going up for public auction. I bought it, silently, through a proxy, and I didn't renovate it. I transformed it into a transitional housing program for young women estranged from toxic families. I called it the Phoenix House. The local paper ran a story titled, Estranged Daughter Turns Childhood Trauma into Community Triumph. They asked if I wanted to include a quote. I did. Some daughters are born to obey. Others are born to rebuild. There's something surreal about watching your name take up space on a skyline. Carrington Strategies wasn't just a consulting firm anymore. It was a signal, a beacon, a flag planted in the middle of a battlefield I once crawled across on my knees. What started as a one-woman survival story had evolved into a team of 30 women, men, and non-binary professionals who had all been sidelined, silenced, or sabotaged by broken systems and bigger egos. I didn't hire resumes. I hired resilience. Our clients weren't just energy companies. They were institutions looking for reinvention. Startups seeking precision. Boards are trying to recover from failure. We didn't just offer solutions, we offered a strategy with teeth. But not everything had gone quiet. 2 weeks before our formal launch gala, a message arrived in my assistant's inbox. Victor Hammond wanted a meeting. He dared to send the request through my own firm's inquiry form. I sat back in my chair, rereading the words. I'd like to speak privately. I have no agenda, just a request. My gut said no, my spine said not, but my strategy brain. She leaned in and smiled. I agreed on one condition. He would meet me at my office, alone, no handlers, no legal backup. Just the two of us. The day arrived. It was cold and wet rain streaking the windows of our 27th floor conference room. I waited, standing, arms folded, wearing black like armor. Victor entered, slowly. Gone was the tailored arrogance. His suit was off the rack, his hair once silver polished was thinning. He looked like someone who had finally learned what it felt like to be irrelevant. I underestimated you, he said flatly. I know, I replied, without moving. I lost everything, he added. I tilted my head. No, Victor, you gambled everything, and lost, because you backed the wrong Carrington. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. He took a shaky breath. I didn't realize how deep it all went. I smiled thinly. That's what happens when you don't listen to the quiet ones. He offered a handshake. I didn't take it. Instead, I turned to the window, watching the lights of Chicago blink below me like stars. Victor left without another word. That would be the last time I ever saw him. The launch gala arrived like a full-circle moment. Rooftop venue, champagne towers, press badges. I stood on stage with my team behind me. I looked out over the crowd and saw not just success, but survival. The kind that builds empires. And I said the words I'd written at 2 a.m. 3 years ago, crying into my pillow after yet another dismissal email. To the ones who said I was too emotional, too intense, too much. Thank you. You helped me build the one thing you never saw coming. Power without permission. The crowd erupted. Flashbulbs flared. My name echoed across every major industry blog by morning. But even as the world applauded, the ghosts still whispered. Voicemails from my mother filled my inbox weekly. Leia won't leave her room. She's broken. Your father's angry. He says you've abandoned your roots. We didn't know this would happen. We thought we were protecting her future. It was always her. Never me, never an apology, never the truth, but it no longer cuts like it once did, because I understood now. They hadn't destroyed me, they had accidentally built me. Then came the letter. No return address, just my mother's shaky handwriting on the front. Inside, she wrote, we thought we were protecting your sister's future. We didn't realize we were destroying yours. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope, someday, you'll remember the good times. I stared at the letter for a long time. Then I folded it once, then twice, and placed it in a drawer. Labeled, Lessons, because this wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about evolution. Some people are born to fit in, to inherit titles, to wear expectations like tailored coats. And some are born to burn it all down and start again. I didn't rebuild my life to punish them, I rebuilt it because they left me no other choice. And now, their names weren't whispered in boardrooms anymore. Mine was. Their legacy wasn't climbing. Mine was carved in glass, but the final touch, the closing chapter, was quiet. No cameras, no press, just a local newspaper in Chicago that ran a short piece titled, Estranged Daughter Converts Childhood Home into Shelter for Young Women. It described the Phoenix House, a sanctuary for women estranged from toxic families, a space for healing, for transition, for starting over. They asked if I wanted to include a quote. I did. Some daughters are born to obey, others are born to rebuild. That's where my story ends. Not with screams, not with slammed doors, but with a skyline that bears my name, and a silence that no longer hurts. Because power, true power, doesn't ask for permission, it just arrived.